Yes, I'm upside down, but I'm back! I miss making videos so much, so I'm going to make a video quickly here for you, talking about slopes and everything, so it should be all pretty exciting, so hold on for your ride. Alright, so, it's been a while since I made a video, so forgive me if I'm really bad with the technology. So, let me just make sure I zoom in here. Alright, focus. Alright, so we're given a graph here, and this is the velocity graph. It could be like a car, or a bag filling with toys, like if it's near Christmas, and everything. But anyways, all it really says is, if we look at this graph, anywhere in the graph, it tells us the velocity of the bag filling with toys. So, if we think about units, in this case, it's probably the number of toys. In this case, per hour would be the unit for this graph right here. So if at any given point, it's like this is like 0 toys per hour because you were bad. Alright, so if we take a look here, looking at velocity, now we talked about today in class, or you might recall, that if you're above the x-axis, if this is my velocity, or my slope, because this is a slope, a derivative here, anything above, you're saying that the velocity is positive. In other words, something is going to be increasing. Anything below the x-axis, we're saying that it is going to be decreasing. That's what the slope tells us there. So we're going to answer some questions about the following times. So it asks, between t equals 0 and t equals 2 hours, well, what's happening? Well, let's put in terms of velocity. Well, during that time, v prime of t is 0. In other words, we're saying the velocity is 0. The amount or the slope or the rate of change is sometimes slope we call the rate of change. Okay, make sure you write that down. It's called the rate of change is 0. So what does that tell us? It's not telling us it doesn't tell us how many toys we have. All it really tells us is that the number of toys is not changing. So we say there is no change in the number of toys. And then it says, between 2 and 3 hours, what happens? Well, in this case, we're going to look at 2 ways. One is positive because we're above the x-axis, so v prime of t is positive. But also, it has a positive slope. And that's going to mean something for us way later on in just a few weeks, okay? That's a positive slope. So what is this telling us? Well, because it's positive, we're saying that the number of toys is increasing. Now, because the slope is positive, that means it's increasing at an increasing rate. At an increasing rate. That's going to get into concavity later on, or what we call sometimes acceleration in the physics world. So it's kind of like this. Imagine you're at a car. Ready? For 2 hours, you're sitting at a red light. The light changes. What do? You step on the gas. You're going forward faster and faster and faster. That's what this tells me, because my velocity is increasing because it's positive. The higher up on the y-axis we go, the faster we go. So we're accelerating. In other words, we're increasing at an increasing rate. We're accelerating. Very cool. Now, between 3 and 6 hours, oh no. What happens here? Well, v prime of t is still 0, but now the slope is constant. It's a 0 slope. Well, what that's telling us is that, one, we're still getting toys because the velocity, the rate of change is still positive. So we're still getting toys. The number of toys is increasing. But this time, it's at a constant rate. Now, what does it mean in terms of like a car? Oh no, a cop gets behind us. We're still going forward at a positive rate of change, because that's what the slope tells me. Slope is what we call a rate of change. We're still going forward at a positive rate of change, but the slope is 0. The slope of my rate of change is 0, so we're not accelerating. We're just going at a constant rate. So for 3 hours, that cop follows us. Before finally, guess what happens? Oh no, they pull us over. So between 6 and 7 hours, let's take a look at what happens. This is my slopes here, right? So we're saying that my rate of change here, my v prime of t, my rate of change is less than 0, but this time it's a negative slope. Now it's kind of like this. I'm still going forward in my car. We're still going forward because my rate of change, my slope is still positive. Toys per hour, we're still getting toys, in other words, in this problem, because the slope is still above the x-axis. But it's at a negative slope. So the number of toys is still increasing, but because of the negative slope, but at a decreasing rate. In other words, we're still getting more, but we're slowing down. Like in your car, you hit the brakes. You still go forward when you hit the brakes, but you're slowing down to 0, where my rate of change is 0 right here. And then so basically, what's happening between 2 and 7 hours? Well, the entire time, v prime of t, which is my rate of change, is always greater than 0. This is telling us that the number of toys during that entire time is increasing. So during that entire time, we are getting toys. For 5 hours, we are getting toys. Now, if you're in Physics C or later on this year, what we're going to do later on, we're going to take the area under this curve. And the area under this curve tells us how many toys we get. Or in terms of velocity, if this is a velocity graph, it gives us our distance traveled. But that's later. We don't even know that yet. So, what happens between t equals 7 and t equals 10 hours? Well, once again, my velocity is 0. My v prime of t is 0. My rate of change is 0. And again, there is no change in the number of toys. So then what happens between 10 and 12 hours? Oh no! You were robbed! Well, you were just bad, and Santa had to come back in and get all the toys. So because here, v prime of t is, oh my gosh, I keep saying less than 0 here. That should be greater than 0. Please fix that. You're all probably trying to correct me already. Doggone it. And over here, that should be greater than 0 too. That's terrible of me. Those should be greater than zeros. That is my bad. Sorry about that. V prime of t here is greater than 0. So, at E, between 10 and 12 hours, now v prime of t is less than 0 because we're below the x-axis. So what's happening? Well, if it was above the x-axis, the number of toys was increasing. So if it's below, we're saying that the number of toys is decreasing. Very easy to do. Now, please copy this down, put these in your notes, whatever you need to do, but also please remember that I did have to make corrections here and here. Those should be greater than, and this is again greater than because we are above the x-axis. Should be greater than in both cases there. That was my fault. So anyways, it's been great making another video. I have really missed it. I hope you guys enjoy this one, and I will see y'all later.